When it comes to your home, you need a team you can trust. At Loader Plumbing, Heating and Gas, we pride ourselves on delivering reliable professional service every time. Whether it's a leaky tap, a boiler that needs attention, or a full central heating installation, our experienced engineers have you covered, even for landlords' gas safety certificates. We're fully qualified, gas safe registered, and dedicated to keeping your home running smoothly and safely. And because we know problems don't always happen between 9 and 5, Loader Plumbing, Heating and Gas offers fast response times and friendly service whenever you need us. So if you want peace of mind, quality workmanship, and a local team that truly cares, choose Loader Plumbing, Heating and Gas. Visit loaderplumbingandheating.com and let's keep your home warm, safe, and worry-free. Link is in the description below.
Right, so I am sitting down today with Peter Bleksley, former Met detective.
Indeed.
So we know that you're on GB News. We know that you're a bit of a commentator on things. What about your early career? What was it like being in the Met?
Well, I joined as a cadet when I was 17 years old. I'd left school at 16, very few qualifications, basically flunked education. Enjoyed the wonderful summer of 1976. That's how old I am. That's how long ago it was I left school. And then at the end of that summer, my mum said, "Are you actually going to get a job?" And I did. I got a job as a warehouseman at a local branch of Woolworths, which was wonderful. I loved it, earning money, shifting any boxes about and all that great fun. My mum had loftier ambitions for me of working in Woolies. And one night I came home, and to my shock horror, there was an enormous uniformed police officer sitting in the lounge of the flat that I shared with my mum in Bleksley, just down the road. And he sold the idea of joining the police to me, and he did a brilliant job.
Okay.
And he was a smart old fella. And just by way of a conversational piece, he said to me, he said, "I wonder, what are your interests, your music and that kind of stuff, sport?" And I said, yeah. And of course, he teased it out. I mean, I've got posters on the wall. So, of course, by way of his unofficial vetting of me, he said, "Oh, show them to me." So he gets into my bedroom, doesn't he? So we can have a little look around and see where I've got Che Guevara posters on the wall or something, which I didn't have, which I think might have sort of disbarred me from joining the old bill. But anyway, by the time I left, he pulled out the application form, and I did that. And a few months later, walked into the police cadet school at Hendon, 17, with a haircut that I thought was short enough, but clearly wasn't. And discovered discipline, physical fitness, all that kind of stuff. Then became a PC 18 months later, posted to Peckham in South East London. And I thought I'd been a bit of a Jack the Lad around Bexley Heath. Well, when I went to Peckham, I discovered that I was an absolute marshmallow. And very interesting and varied time at Peckham in uniform and plain clothes. Got sected to become a detective. Went to the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, Kensington and Nick as a detective. And again, different area, different demographic, different crimes. I just loved it. I was, to use the expression in those days, job pissed, which meant I couldn't get enough of it. Nicking criminals was just such a joy, such an absolutely wonderful thing to do. And then bid them farewell at Crown Court a few months later was lovely. Then I was confronted with a choice, promotion or specialisation. I chose specialisation. Was fortunate enough to be accepted onto the Central Drug Squad at Scotland Yard.
Mm-hmm.
And thereafter, my undercover career started. And again, it all went wonderfully well, brilliantly exciting, travelled the world, and it was all going brilliantly until it wasn't. And
until it wasn't.
That signified the end of my policing career.
Was that when the FBI targeted you? Is that right?
Well, what had happened was we'd taken part in a global drugs operation because that was our job. We were at the top of the tree when it came to investigating drugs in the UK. And we did a job that involved the Garda Síochána in Ireland, the FBI, who was their informant, Customs and Excise, as they were called then, who we had a very prickly relationship with, and other law enforcement agencies. Global reach, global drugs sort of conspiracy importation. And it culminated with a bad guy delivering to me at the Gatwick Hilton Hotel what then was the largest consignment of heroin ever seized within the UK. Not at borders, but within the UK.
Right, okay.
That kind of part of the operation all went well. I weighed and tested the drugs, took me 4 hours. He and I then departed for the bar. We had a celebratory drink to the start of a profitable, long-standing, wonderful business relationship. As we were waiting for the lift, all the old armed police jumped out of here, there, and everywhere, threw us to the ground, handcuffed us at gunpoint. Other arrests were simultaneously made in other places because obviously there was an exchange of money supposed to be happening elsewhere. All that kind of thing. Terrific bit of policing, ran very smoothly. But then what happened not long after, when all the bad guys are sitting in prison thinking, how did we get here? They worked out, well, where was that gobby, long-haired South Londoner? Why wasn't he in the dock with us when we were all in court? And I, of course, figured out, you didn't need to be Sherlock to work it out, that I might have been an undercover cop.
Right.
So then what happened was they worked on the theory that if they killed me, they killed the evidence. And to a certain extent, they were right. So they hatched a plot to murder me. But at the time, they knew very little information about me. This is the analog age. They hadn't secretly taken photographs of me or anything like that.
Right, okay.
All they knew was a bloke called Peter with a long ponytail. So that was kind of fine. That threat was just out there and wasn't ever going to come to fruition, we hoped. But then what happened, because the case was multi-agency, there was a huge load of willy-waggling going on among the senior officers as to who had primacy over the operation and all that bollocks. We'd got on with the job and just done it. And it was a cracking job and everything had gone really very well until these bosses start arguing over it, when their egos start clashing. Anyway, somebody was instructed to draw up a report detailing everything that had happened in the operation. Okay, so far, not a problem. The dick that wrote that briefing note, which, by the way, is on peterbleksey.com, my website, if you ever want to have a read of it, that idiot put my real name in it. Not the number that's allocated to me by the undercover branch,
right,
which is the only way you should ever be identified on any official documentation. No, he put my real name in it, in block capitals, and of course, I have a very unusual surname. There's only about 14 Bleksleys in the UK, and I've fathered most of them. Well, no, only 3. But anyway, and that my name was repeated in this report time and time and time again. And guess what happened? That report was printed off, first mistake, taken out of a police building, second mistake, put in a plainclothes police car, another mistake. This twat who wrote it then allegedly went shopping on the way home. And guess what happened? We could all guess what happened next.
Mm-hmm.
The car got broken into and the report got stolen.
That's convenient.
Yeah, very. So now you marry up the existing plot to kill me and that report. If those two things ever came together, I was in very, very deep trouble, potentially. So the Brown stuff really hit the fan. I got called into a meeting at Scotland Yard. They'd been told, don't go home the previous night. And by close of play that day, it had been decided by the powers that be that I had to abandon my home, abandon my identity, abandon the life I loved, and be hurriedly parachuted into the Witness Protection Program, which was the start of 2 miserable years, which I basically spent drinking too much, smoking too much, and conspiracy theorising as to how all of this could possibly have happened. And they also still wanted me to work undercover during this period. Utter nonsense, crazy. It was destined to end poorly, and it ended with a catastrophic mental health breakdown, which led to me spending 3.5 weeks on the first occasion in a lock-in psychiatric ward, which basically signified the beginning of the end of my policing career.
Okay. So one of my supporters actually wanted me to ask, what sort of marks it leaves on you as psychologically and on quote unquote on your soul, leading these double lives as such?
It takes a toll,
Mhm.
and unfortunately, the list of undercover casualties from the world of policing is quite a long one. It's left a bit of a litany of broken careers and broken heads, for want of a better expression. I'm very lucky in that it was a long time ago. I had amazing treatment from the NHS,
Mhm.
really brilliant psychiatrists, mental health nurses, and the such like. I had a relapse some years later, was hospitalised again. But the kind of it's all a long time ago. I would say I'm completely well again. My mental health is very robust. My physical health is good. Um, and there's lessons that I learned. Number one, if you're having a hard time, talk to someone.
Mhm.
Because that age-old adage of a problem shared is a problem halved, I think is a very, very true one. Talk to people, go and see the doctor, get the medical help you need, and I know that can be challenging at times, but fight and battle for it. I was very lucky that my amazing wife and my family fought for everything that I needed to get me well again,
That's good.
which I got. And take the meds. If the meds work for you, take them. I still, to this day, take a tiny 1 milligram maintenance dose of medication, despite my GP, who is wonderful, by the way, an amazing man, repeatedly saying to me in recent years, Peter, it's time to come off them. You know, they've narrowed it down, reduced it. But I always say, hey, Doc, I'm perfectly well. Life is great. Why on earth would I do something that could possibly jeopardize all of that? So, contrary to his wishes, I still take that tiny maintenance dose. It's all legit, it's all prescribed.
Yeah.
Kind of stuff. It's not like I go on a black market and sort a few meds.
You probably know some people from back in the day.
No comment, Your Honour. So that's been my story, and if the meds work, take them. There is no shame in having a mental health episode. There is a lot of shame in wallowing in your own misfortune. You do need to do everything you possibly can to get over it and get back to work and be a functioning member of society again, rather than being a victim. Don't play the victim card. You can get better. The help and the meds are out there. Seize them, use them.
Okay, so from your career in policing, how did you make the jump to author to working on GB News?
Okay, so after being unceremoniously bounced out of the Met, medically retired, I was 40 years old, on a scrap heap of life, as I saw it, because, once again, a flunked education, no trade. You know, I'm not a chippy or a sparks or a plumber or a plasterer or anything like that. Not long been married to my amazing wife. And I thought, what the hell am I going to do? I was aggrieved with the way my career had ended. I know that I was partially to blame. No one forced me to drink as much as I did. I get all of that. But the whole witness protection and all of that was none of my making. And I was aggrieved with the way that I'd been dealt with thereafter. I also felt I had one heck of a story to tell, let alone the 10 years in policing before I went undercover. But 10 years of pretending to be who you're not, you get quite a few tales from that. A lot of very hairy moments, terrifying moments, fun moments. So I thought, I'm going to write a book. And against huge opposition from former colleagues, which included threats, phone calls in the middle of the night, all that kind of nonsense. Go and find someone you can find. I was fortunate enough to get a publishing deal from a renowned publisher. And in 2001, The Gangbuster was published. As part of that publishing deal, because it was with a legit publisher, I had a couple of days of media interviews. So one of those days I spent at the BBC in New Broadcasting House in a small studio with a pair of headphones on, just going from interview to interview to interview. BBC Radio Scotland, Radio Wales, Oxfordshire, Kent, all of that kind of stuff. A few TV interviews as well. So within a short space of time, I had a real crash course in being interviewed by the media.
Yeah.
All as part of publicising the book. And lo and behold, what happened was about a week later, if ever there was a notorious crime or a policing story, they were ringing me up and asking me to comment again. And I would say, well, look, this is not part of promoting the book, so are you going to pay me? And many of them said yes, not for fortunes, you know what I mean, just a little check here or there. But and that was kind of how my media career started. The Gangbuster got picked up by a writer for a BBC series called Murphy's Law. There'd been 2 series of that, which were basically lamentable. Jimmy Nesbitt played the lead role of Tommy Murphy, the undercover cop.
Right.
And the production company had been told by the BBC, either you knock this into shape or we're going to bin it off. So series 3, it's all down to you. Well, one of the writers read the Gangbuster and said, look, we're writing a TV show about an undercover cop. We've got to get this bloke on board. I went to a meeting, sat round an oval table in a restaurant with 13 people from the TV production, directors, writers, producers, all manner of people, script editors. And I was sat down in this empty chair. And the minute I sat down, a rather snotty script editor turned around to me and she said, have you actually read your book? And I said, I wouldn't read that bollocks if you paid me. Right? And that set the tone. We got over it, and she's remained a lifelong friend to this day.
That's good. So from there, you then ended up on GB News, as you are now.
Well, yeah, because for the last more than 20 years, I've been writing. I've written plays for the BBC as well,
Right.
written more books, done a lot of publicity around those. I've kept in the world of crime and policing commentary.
Yeah.
So there are still many broadcasters will ring me up if they want comment on a policing story. So I've kind of kept my profile out there. A few years ago, I started doing the Channel 4 show, Hunted. So that kept me out there as well. And I've been very fortunate that these days I'm still called upon to give commentary, and I've broadened it out from crime and policing now. Believe it or not, some people want to hear what I've got to say about politics and the world in general and all of that. And as you can probably tell, having watched this podcast for the last few minutes, I'm never short of a few words on anything.
No, and that's why we wanted to get you on, actually. So as you're from the world of crime and policing, the state of policing in the UK in 2025. I've just recently seen a video of 2 police officers. It was sent to me, actually, wanting to seize a young girl's phone. Have you seen that one?
I have. I've also seen the response from the police service involved.
What's your opinion on that?
Okay. Be very cautious when you go on social media and you see a 5, 10, 15-second clip. Because when it comes to policing, it will never tell the whole story. Please don't think for a moment that I am trying to forgive the unforgivable in any way, shape or form. I won't. I'm a vehement critic of policing when they get it wrong. So the clip that started bouncing around this weekend, again, people contact me on social media, Peter, what do you think of this? Peter, what do you say to that? And I kept my powder dry because I just knew, because it's what I do for a living, at some point there's going to be a response from the police. Now, the way the 2 officers dealt with it at the front doorstep is not the way I would have dealt with it. Okay, but I do understand that there is a suggestion they had a valid reason for wanting to seize the phone. However, we shall wait and see. I'll just let that play out. But what I will say is their doorstep manner was not great. But if you look at the 2 officers, they appear to me, an old bloke, to be young. they're possibly young in service, and because so much policing experience has disappeared out the back door in recent years and continues to do so, because not only are they struggling to recruit officers, they're struggling to retain them. These youngsters are really not being shown how to do it by officers with a lot of experience and all the wisdom that comes with that.
Do you think that's because they're just recruiting people straight out of university? I've heard that rumour as well. There's no real, what people would refer to as life experience.
Yes, that is a factor, but I'm still a firm believer that if you're good enough, you're old enough, kind of thing. But I was so fortunate to be shown the policing ropes when I went to Peckham as an 18-year-old. And even as a cadet when I was 17, I patrolled the streets at another police station. There was a wealth of experience on what was called our relief, our shift, or whatever they're probably called these days. There were police officers that had done 25 years in uniform on the streets. And what they didn't know about policing wasn't worth knowing. They taught you so much. And of course, the world was very different then, I get it. But so many of those policing lessons would be relevant and apposite today. But you've got youngsters patrolling with youngsters, and so that knowledge and experience is not being passed down.
So do you think the police service is attracting the right people?
I think the British police, in many, many regards, is in a catastrophic state these days. Policing will never be perfect because it's full of people. Okay, so you're always going to have wrong uns, you're going to have the lazy types, and all that kind of stuff. That's just humanity per se. But policing these days is led fundamentally by clowns, by people that call themselves, pardon my stomach rumbling, I've not had any breakfast. It's led by clowns who really see themselves as progressives.
Right.
And in order to progress up that greasy pole of promotion, they've developed a language of their own, a groupthink of their own, which is led by that appalling organisation, the College of Policing, and National Police Chiefs Council fundamentally don't lead. What they've done is for decades now, they've promoted managers and not leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Policing needs leadership that leads by example. So many of these senior cops have got away from the rough and tumble of the front line because they saw rolling around on the pavement with robbers and burglars and shoplifters as being a bit beneath them as they ascended the ranks. And it's changed dramatically. It's changed from being a police force into a social service. And they do a load of nonsense, which is not policing. It's not connected with policing. And they also treat policing as a popularity contest. It's not. As a police officer, you shouldn't give a shit about being unpopular.
No,
in fact, you should be unpopular, especially with, guess who? Criminals.
There we go.
You should be very unpopular with criminals as you smash their front door in, slap the handcuffs on, and drag them out and throw them in the back of a van. Of course, gathering the necessary evidence is,
Of course.
very helpful. It's in a dreadful state. What do the public want? The public want policing that is visible. They want the police to keep the streets safe. They want them to investigate crime.
Less crime reference numbers.
Exactly. And that has been a major part as to why policing popularity is tanked. Because these days, if you have the misfortune to have your house burgled, your car stolen, your van broken into, and many, many other types of crimes, your bike nicked, your phone snatched out of your hand, you, in all likelihood, will not get a police investigation into that. And the public quite rightfully go, why not? It's a crime.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, we didn't solve every crime in my day. I'm not harping on about a day when we lived in a crime-free nirvana, because that's never happened. But you know what? You get in the morning as a detective, for example, go to the crime books, sign for whatever crimes you fancied. That's why there was a good incentive to get in early, so you could, pick the ones that you fancied a bit more than the others, and off you went. And if you were doing the burglary rounds that morning, you'd cipher all the burglaries, jump in the van with a scenes of crimes officer, and at least you'd bloody well try to solve them. You would meet the victims face to face. You could console them to a certain extent. You'd look for shoe marks or fingerprints or a screwdriver that might have been dumped in the back garden as they legged it, or a glove that had been dropped. All those kind of things. And we did that with each and every burglary. And we didn't set people's expectations too high. We did tell them that it's going to be difficult, it's going to be challenging, we may not solve it, but at least those members of the public saw us, knew our names, got our phone numbers, and thought, well, at least they're trying.
Yeah.
And they appreciated that. And then you could give them some crime prevention advice, so it didn't happen again, about how to strengthen the door and the locks and the windows and so on and so forth. All of which was hugely appreciated by the public, by their victims in their moment of need. Now you suffer the dreadful crime, and it is, of being burgled. You ring up or report it online and get the crime reference numbers that you've spoken of.
Mm-hmm.
And people go, well, is that it? Is that what the police are going to do? Basically, it looks like they don't give a shit. And quite frankly, I agree with people. Because if they're not going to investigate it, then clearly they do not give a damn.
It does come across like that. So where do you think it went wrong from the College of Policing? What changed, where it went from, if we call it proper policing, to what we've got now?
Okay. A little bit of a policing history lesson, if you'll forgive me.
No, do it.
You can rewind to 97 or thereabouts, when Blair said education, education, education. Certain ambitious police officers thought, we'll have a bit of this. And off they went to university. In the job's time, drawing a police wage to go to university. Oh, yes, it happened. And they came back to policing, where they'd gone to largely left-leaning seats of learning. And they came back with their heads full of pseudo-intellectual claptrap, none of which was relevant to policing.
Mm-hmm.
But suddenly they were bringing so much of science to policing, some of which has a place, most of which is complete codswallop and is nonsense. The policing principles laid down by Robert Peel nearly 200 years ago are relevant still today. But they've now got letters after their names instead of in front of them. And they were so full of their own shit and self-importance that they got promoted up the pole. They've been in senior policing roles now for decades, and that generational thing has just handed it on from one cohort of senior officers to another. They are disconnected from the public. They've treated it as a popularity contest. They've reached out to various communities, which is nonsense, complete nonsense. If we just rewind to when I was talking about investigating the burglaries,
Yeah.
When you did that, you met people from every community, because every type of person got burgled. So by actually doing police work instead of social work, you'd meet people anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that same old thing that they talk about if you have an experience at a restaurant, for example. If you have a good experience, apparently you'll tell 3 people. And if you have a bad experience, you'll tell 20 people.
That's right, yeah.
Well, bit by bit, because people had a good experience, they would share that, because they're going to tell people they got burgled. And they'd say, they turned up, they tried. And that's the way you react, you integrate with communities. And only 2 communities policing need to bother about. The first one is victims of crime, and the second community is perpetrators of crime. Leave all the rest. The moderate mainstream will support police because they'll get met by you when a crime occurs. But they don't. So people think the police can't be bothered with us, I can't be bothered with them. Then they pick up the paper or turn on the telly or go on social media and see dreadful police story after dreadful police story, and consequently they go, no trust, no respect, sodden.
Okay. So just to rewind to your time undercover, or your time in service in general, are there any particular stories that you think fondly of, or memories that you think, oh God, that was good? Or
Well,
something funny, just to balance it out and lighten it up a
lighten
bit?
the mood. Well, so much of my undercover work was against the illegal drugs industry.
Right.
Of course, I also bought guns and stolen lorry loads of stuff and dealt with conspiracies to murder when I pretended to be an assassin and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of it was drugs. And I travelled the world, trained with the FBI, all that kind of stuff. So now, of course, when I reflect and ask myself the question, is there less drugs on the streets as a result of what me and my colleagues did? Or are there less guns on the streets as a result of what me and my colleagues did? I have to honestly look myself in the mirror and go, no. So, in other words, my policing career, by and large, was a complete and utter waste of time. I'm proud of the fact that there's people alive today that might possibly otherwise have been murdered because we were recruited to be the assassins. And so, of course, those murders never happened.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that wanted us to commit the murders went off to prison. But, yeah, there were light moments, obviously. There were moments of levity and fun, and maybe what I call this as fun, others might not see as such. But anyway, forgive me. You asked, I'll give it a
No,
go.
no, that's fine. I'm guessing your adrenaline was going a lot back when you were undercover.
Hugely your peripherals as well, because you've got to be well aware of everything that's going on around you. Because they deploy spotters, we would have a surveillance team possibly. I mean, it is really turbocharged kind of stuff. And the adrenaline, you have to learn how to control the adrenaline so that it doesn't run away with you and you end up saying stupid things or behaving like you wouldn't. Yeah, it was a craft, and I was fortunate enough to be pretty good at lying.
That's fair enough. So, just to wrap up, because I know you've given me quite a bit of your time and I do appreciate it. If you could improve or change things about policing in 2025, what would it be? Where would you start and how would you make things different?
I'd abolish the College of Policing.
You wouldn't reform it? You just get rid?
No, it's beyond reform.
Right.
I'd abolish it and set up a body which is less of a quango, which in essence it really is.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the title of it, College of Policing, posh people say, we went to college, don't they? They don't say they went to university. They say, yes, I went to such and such a college, And I go, well, is that like the tech college down the road from me? Then anyway, so it's got a pretentious title and it's a pointless organisation. And it's not just me saying it. I mean, I know a bloke very well who recently retired from the College of Policing as a chief superintendent. You want to hear what he's got to say about it. So I'd abolish it and set up a new policing oversight body that was fit for purpose. I would abolish the independent office of police conduct because it's not independent and it's also pathetic and useless and slow. As you can see, the to-do list is already getting very long.
Mm-hmm.
And policing needs utter reform. It needs, quite simply, to reconnect with the people it serves, the punters, the public. Instead of being about self-service, which so many of the people in it are, it needs to be about public service. It's gone, quite literally, from being a blue-collar job into being a white-collar organisation that is so far up itself, the public have not been fooled and the public are becoming ever more distant from it.
So it is the fact that it's lost its connection to the public that's part of the problem, is that what we're saying?
And it's reinvented itself. It's gone from being a force that fights crime into being a social service that polices free speech, not police's job, right? Of course, when speech turns into crime, it is the police's job. But they've got their knickers in such a twist anyway. They don't even realise it. They don't understand the law, and they should do. They threw so much of what was really good about my era of policing, they threw the baby out with the bathwater in their never-ending efforts to reform, to be progressives. And look where it's gone. Is policing better today than it was 50 years ago? There's a question for your viewers, your listeners, to consider. My answer would be no, it isn't.
No, and that's a good place to leave it. Peter Bleksley, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.